Hello, it is I, Andrine, your Jewish American Priestess, and today I'm coming to you with another Hebrunes reading. Today is a beautiful spring day where I am, and we're just going to check in and see what the Hebrunes have to say for us today. I'm not going to use any tarot cards today. Today I'm just going to go with the Hebrunes. Maybe we'll pick 3 from a different set to guide you into your reading, and then we'll do a full reading with the ones that come up for each of those sets. Does that sound good to you? Sounds good to me. So we're going to go ahead and start with, I'm going to take this set, which is on the top. Now this is a set that I made some time ago, and it is made out of clay, and so they're very fragile, and so they're more challenging to manufacture and work with. But we'll pull out 3. And I have the letter Heh, I have the blank, the Ein Sof, and one more, and then we have the letter Lamed. And just as a brief description of what each of these letters manifests to assist you, to guide you into your reading. The letter Heh in general speaks to presence. The Ein Sof is the letter that speaks to the infinite, and the Lamed can be seen to represent heart. So choose which one of these letters calls to you today, and I will put the timestamps down below, and you can choose your reading, and I will see you there. All right, for those of you who chose the letter Heh today, again, the letter Heh speaks to presence. It is the first letter of the word Hineni, and it is the number 5 in Gematria, and it speaks to, being present, Hineni, which means here I am. It's the answer that people give to the divine when they're called by the divine. The appropriate answer is always Hineni. Here I am, present, available for service. So let's do a little reading for those of you who chose the Heh here today. I'm going to pull out 3 Hebrunes for you. And we have the letter Resh, we have the letter Shin, and we have the letter Chet. So I'm going to have to back that out to see it. Okay. So I'm going to set this off to the side slightly. So we're talking about presence today, and how does that manifest for you right now in terms of your situation in this spring day, in this beautiful spring day where we are. And our central issue right now is the letter Resh. And Resh is the letter that means head. The word is Rosh in Hebrew, and it means the beginning of a thing, like Rosh Hashanah, meaning the beginning of the new year, or Rosh Chodesh, which means the beginning of the month. And so it speaks to something new is starting, something new is being planted. And I say planted because it is also the binary transformation of seed and barrenness. We're coming to a beginning of a thing, and we're trying to determine whether that will bear fruit, whether that seed will sprout and make a plant and eventually come into fruition. And our letter Resh also corresponds to the head and the body, because it is the word that means head, and intellect having to do with that. So we're trying to think our way into our situation here. We have something that is new on the horizon. Resh is also a letter that you can see it's bent over, so it has this bowed head idea of some sort of humility. It can represent someone who is impoverished or humbled in some way. It does have the connotation also of the word Rosh, which means a poor person. And it rules over the planet Mercury in the sky. So there's something to do with communication. Maybe we're beginning something new and there's a communication piece that needs to happen in order for it to move forward. And that's our current situation. The letter that's in the center of our reading is the letter Shin. Shin is the mother letter of fire. And it represents in this position, what is our challenge or our fear in this situation? Fire, of course, is a dangerous element, but it's also exciting and transformative. So maybe there's a challenge around transformation, about spirit, and that transformation through fire. Sometimes things get burned up in the midst of transformation in order for us to get to the next thing. In terms of seed and barrenness, what comes up for me right now when I look at this is there's this ancient agricultural method of slash and burn, where you take a field, you take down everything in it, and you set the field on fire. And that can seem very destructive, but in the end, it transforms that substance into ash, which then fertilizes the soil for better growth. So although things may be scary right now, with this fire that's appearing right now in your life, there is ability to nourish the ground. There is the ability to bring more nourishment that's necessary for growth into the situation. So although things may seem a little hot right now, that fear that you might have around the fire, be aware that it can cause greater growth in the long run. And our outcome letter here in the final position is the letter Chet. The letter Chet is the letter that begins the word Chai, so it is about life. So we've got a seed, we've got fire, transformation, and life coming up from the bottom. So it seems like a very positive outcome here. We have life, meaning the word Chai. We have Choshek also, which means darkness. And darkness isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of times people fear that which is dark. But darkness is where all life begins, that we have this ability within ourselves to create in a dark place. Anyone who has a womb knows that that's where life is sparked into being, that we have this darkness, this dark place where life bursts forth from, that we are all born out of the darkness of the womb. It is also the number 8 in Gematria, which speaks to the infinite, this idea of the infinity loop, which looks like an 8 on its side, because 7 is the number of days of creation and 8 is one more. So we have this idea of the infinite that is coming into being after this time of fire. We have the Resh, which speaks to seed and barrenness, beginning of a new thing. The fire, which is about transformation and possibly destruction, but also nourishment. And it brings us to life. It brings us to Chet, which is life and darkness and the infinite all coming together into one. And for those of you who chose the Heh today, remember to remain present as you watch this growth take place, because we don't have the ability to make things grow. We only have the ability to plant a seed and then watch the transformation happen and then enjoy the outcome, which is life, the infinite, as we sit in presence with it. So for those of you who chose the Heh, this has been your reading today. I hope you have a beautiful springtime as we move into this time toward our celebration of liberation of Passover next week. I hope to see you next time. Welcome those of you who chose the Ein Sof. This is a blank rune that I always leave in each of my sets, which speaks to the infinite nature of divinity, that blankness, that primordial material out of which all of creation is made. The Ein Sof is that time before time, the infinite, the tohu vavohu, the void that exists, and the primordial material out of which all that exists has been carved or created. So it's this proto-time, this proto-space, and the fullness of time before time and time after time, that from which we come and to which we all return. So that's a pretty big ask here for regarding what your reading is. But we are in this time of spring right now where anything is possible, infinite possibility here. So we're going to do a 3 Hebrune reading today. I'll pull out 3 and we'll see where we are. And at the top we have the Yud. Love it. In the center we have the Pei. And down below we have the Samech. Nice. Okay. So at the very top we have the letter Yud. And the letter Yud is the letter that is one point. It is that seed that we plant. It's about the divine, because it's the first letter of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. And it is that one point out of which all things explode. When we had the primordial chaos, when we had the infinite before time, it is said that the divine contracted themselves down into one point. And out of that one point, everything exploded forward, that Big Bang moment where that seed was planted, and like a sperm that is planted inside of a womb, you have the potential for an entire people, an entire tribe, an entire nation within one seed, because it is that one point, the divine name, that spark of life. It's like the atom, the building block of all things in the universe. It's also the hand, which is to say Yod. Yod begins with the letter Yud, and it's about action, being able to make things in the world. And it is the foundation of sexuality. So there's a springtime, there's all this life that's coming alive, and sexuality in terms of people and animals coming together, but also just like flowers opening and showing their fertility parts for the bees to come. And it's just a beautiful time of year. It is the smallest letter, and it is the building block of all the universe. And it speaks to creativity and artisanship. It is the number 10, so it's the number 1 times 10, so it's this big ultimate manifestation of oneness. You have this one point, but it's magnified. That beginning, that seed, that open mind, the infinite possibility, but then there's this one spark that's just planted in it. So that's where we are right now, this time of excitement and creation. And our middle letter is the letter that represents what's a challenge or fear for us right now, and it's the letter Pei. It is said to be a mouth, and it is the mouth of the divine speaking creation into existence. It is said that the divine creates through speech, and we have this ability ourselves to create what we'd like to see in the world by speaking it into existence. So there's a challenge right now. How do we take that blankness and use the seed and speak into existence what we'd like to see in the world? Our words create our reality, but we need to speak a positive message about what we'd like to see in the world. Pei is the binary transformation of grace and ugliness. So it is possible to speak like, I don't like this, I don't want this, and to complain about things. But beneficially, one ideally will speak, I do like this. This is what I would love to see in the future. This is what I would love to see in my reality. So we have this challenge right now. It's like, how do we speak into existence what we'd like to see instead of complaining about what we don't want in the world? And that's what it seems to me is that challenge for us right now. Maybe there's a fear around not knowing what's going to happen. It is the number 80 in Gematria, which speaks to that idea of the infinite, 8 being the infinity loop, and 10 times 8 being an ultimate manifestation of the infinite, back here to the void, the infinite, the allness of all things. So it's a little bit frightening sometimes to not know, to see just this blank slate and not know how it's going to turn out. But our challenge here is to somehow be able to speak into existence what we would love to see without doing the complaining part about what we don't want to see. Really focus on the positive, really move forward into a positive outcome and speak what we'd like to see into the world. And that brings us to the final letter in our reading, which is the letter Samech. Samech is about boundaries. It is the letter that says sovev, which means to surround. And it's surrounding oneself both with comfort and protection. In the Paleo Hebrew, it looked like a thorn, and it is the foundation of agitation. So it used to be that people would plant thorny hedges around their property in order to protect their livestock from predators and to keep them inside. Those boundaries are really important, but they can also be irritating. They're a little irritable. Boundaries are challenging. But if we can plant the seeds and speak into existence what we'd like to see, we will create solid, strong boundaries that will protect us. It is about also cycles and circles and spirals. So we will be able to complete what it is we need to complete to find the next iteration of the thing as we come around the cycle of the year. We've just come into the month of Nisan, which is this time of year we come to every year where we celebrate Passover, we celebrate our liberation. So as we're coming into that season, it's important to know that we've traveled, we've come through and spiraled forward. We're not in the same place we were before. We get to compare to where we were last year and the year before and 10 years ago. We've planted this seed. We're challenged with speaking into existence what we'd like to see, and we get to come to conclusion with being surrounded, maybe being surrounded with family, maybe being surrounded with just protection from the divine, that we have appropriate boundaries when we do come together as family, because it's challenging sometimes to come together with family. Hold our boundaries, be safe, take the time we need, even if we're feeling agitated. And that will bring us through this blank time, this Ein Sof, this time of timelessness. And when we come through it, we'll have that protection, that safety, comfort in the divine. So for those of you who chose the Ein Sof today, this has been your reading. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please like and subscribe. And I will see you here next time. Hello. For those of you who chose the Lamed, this is the letter that you've picked. It looks a little bit like a seed growing out of the ground. It's been planted down below the earth, and you can see that horizontal line looking like the top of the earth, and out of the top comes a little sprout. Lamed is the letter that begins the word lev, which means heart, and it's about reaching up with heart toward divinity, reaching toward the light after we've planted ourselves deep in the earth. I'm going to set it off to the side here. So Lamed is about elevation of heart, about aspiration, about teaching and learning, but it's also the intestines in the body. So it's about digesting, taking in what we need to receive as nourishment, digesting it, discerning what is useful for our bodies and what needs to be released. Same is true with information. As we take in information, what is useful, what is not, take what we like, leave the rest, and move forward, hopefully moving up toward something aspirational. That's the bell that reminds us that the divine is here. It feels like an exclamation point whenever it shows up randomly in my day. So I love that for you here. We have the Lamed. And today I'm going to pull out 3 Hebrunes to illuminate this further for you. We have at the top the letter Mem. In the center we have the letter Vav. Oh, that one just leapt right out. And the letter Kuf below. Okay, so for our current situation, the letter Mem at the top here, Mem is said to be a womb. It is the mother letter of water. So it speaks to transformation and cleansing, like a mikvah, but also the creation element, Mayim Chaim, waters of life, which is to say the amniotic fluid from which we are all born. It is the belly in the body, or the womb, and it is the number 40, so it speaks to the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. The water frequently is corresponded to emotions, so it could have to do with a welling up of emotions, possibly even grief, and this idea of the deep, the floods, those deep parts of ourselves that are emotional that need to come to the surface. So it sounds to me like the Mem is speaking to us having a time of gestation right now. Something is trying to be born in us, and we need to be patient with it. Gestation takes time. So we have our heart element, but we have to wait for whatever it is that is coming, this water, this emotional piece that is gestating deep within us right now. It's also associated with the prophetess Miriam, who is very, very prominent at this season of Pesach. She is the one who put the baby Moses in a basket and guided him to be saved from certain death. She also is the one who, when we passed through the sea in our liberation from Mitzrayim, Egypt, danced with in celebration as we passed through the Red Sea and came to the other side. And that whole transformation is very much a birth process as we go through a watery place from a place of enslavement into a place of freedom. So Miriam is really prominent here. She's also said to have had a well in the desert that represented Miriam and followed them around, and when she was exiled for some time, that well dried up. So finding our sustenance, finding our well in the desert. It is said that the Torah is seen as water that pours down from the heavens for us to nourish us spiritually. So something is in gestation right now. We need to celebrate the water that is available to us when the rain comes, to really soak it in, really soak in what's coming to us from above. And in our central place, this is the position that represents that which is a challenge or a fear for us, and it's the letter Vav. The letter Vav is the letter that is about connection. It's literally the word and in Hebrew. So there's some challenges with connection right now. It is the thing that looks like a root or a taproot, and you can see that little sprout coming up at the top, very similar to the sprout at the top of the Lamed. Something is planted deep within the ground and wants to come out and connect with the heavens, the sky. It's planted in the ground and it reaches up toward the heavens. But there's some fear or some challenge here that maybe coming together, even with family, can be scary and challenging, that connection piece. Or maybe we're having trouble connecting with our divinity right now. It does correspond to the month of Iyar, which is coming up right after Nisan, and it is a transitional time where we have this liberation that happens through Pesach, when we are freed from Egypt, and then there we are in the desert, free. But what does that mean? How do we live like that? So that month of connection, being able to figure out how do we connect with others, how do we connect with the divine now that we are free, and where do we go from here? So this challenging time that is sometimes seen in the counting of the Omer, where we pass from our liberation to revelation, where Torah is finally given at Sinai. And it can be a really challenging time, this time of transition. It does correspond to the number 6 in Gematria. And the number 6 is, I would say, the 6th day of creation, Friday. So things are not quite finished yet. Again, we've got this waiting idea. So 6 is things are getting close to finishing, but they're not finished yet. So again, waiting period. This really can be challenging. And it does correspond to the sense of hearing in the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation. Each of the letters is paired with a body sense, and it has have a sense of hearing involved in it. And so maybe it's a really good time to sit and listen as we're in our gestation period. Really connect with the divine and listen and try to tap into what is it we're supposed to be learning now that we are in our freedom period. And that brings us down to our final letter in the reading, which is the letter Kuf. And the letter Kuf is the outcome of our situation in this position. Given the current circumstances, Kuf is the letter that means kadosh. It's the first letter of the word kedusha or kadosh, which means sacredness, holiness. And it's also the first letter of the word kof, which means monkey. So it's got both of those pieces in it. There's some kind of holiness that is coming eventually as we sit through this time of gestation and connection, and it will bring us to a sense of sacredness, but also possibly to a sense of silliness, the monkey time, the monkey business that comes with Kof. It's a contradictory letter in that it has this idea of sacredness and animalistic nature at the same time. And how do we balance those? Ideally, we have the tools to do that. It is the number 100 in Gematria. So it's not just 1, it's not just 10, it's 10 times 10. So we have to balance the idea of like this 10 Sephirot, which are the divine emanations of God, and the 10 Commandments, which are restrictions. So we have this sublimity and this restriction as well. And how do we balance those two to come into a place of wholeness and holiness? It is the letter that corresponds to the month of Adar that just passed, where we celebrate Purim and have a lot of maybe fun during that time. And now we're kind of moving into this more serious time. But maybe in the final analysis, after we move through ER, we'll come back into a time of joy and play. It does correspond to the tribe of Naphtali, which means my struggle. So there is some struggle here that again, balance between holiness and animalistic nature, that balance between the sublime emanations of the divine, the Sephirot, and the commandments which restrict us into a basic set of laws and rules that are given to us after ER as we come into Sivan with the Shavuot revelation at Sinai. There's a lot going on coming up in the next little while, but we're being asked to reach up with heart, that we've planted ourselves in the ground, that we have a sprout that's coming up, and there's a time of gestation right now. We're challenged with connection, maybe there's a little fear around connection, and when we come through it all, we'll come into sacredness and more sense of ourselves in our animal bodies. And so for those of you who chose the Lamed today, reaching up with heart, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time.